Welcome back to the Rooted Wild podcast. I'm Katherine Winkles, a certified recreation therapist, and this space is where we explore nervous system care and recreation therapy, sustainable ways of living well through nature, movement, creativity, rest, and compassionate self-understanding. Over the past few episodes, we've talked about how individuals can support their nervous systems through movement, sensory regulation, and pacing. Today, we're zooming out, because wellness is not only shaped by individual choices, it's also shaped by access. This episode is called Leisure Access and Disability Justice. We're going to explore how structural barriers can limit participation in recreation and leisure, and why recreation therapy recognizes participation as an essential part of health, not a luxury. Before we dive in, take a moment to think about the activities that help you feel most like yourself. Maybe it's spending time outdoors, creating art, movement, sports, reading, connecting with friends, gardening, even music. Now imagine those activities suddenly becoming difficult or inaccessible because of physical barriers, cost, transportation, energy limitations, sensory environments, or social expectations. For many people living with disabilities or chronic illness, these barriers are a part of daily life, and when participation becomes limited, well-being can suffer. Why leisure matters for health. Recreation therapy research consistently shows that participation in meaningful leisure supports physical health, emotional regulation, cognitive functioning, social connection, and quality of life. The American Therapeutic Recreation Association, or ATRA, defines recreation therapy as a systematic process that uses activity and participation to improve health, independence, and well-being. Participation is not simply entertainment. It supports identity, autonomy, resilience, and community belonging. When people lose access to meaningful leisure, the impact can ripple across many areas of life, which is why recreation therapists often work to remove barriers and expand opportunities for participation. What disability justice means in the context of recreation. The concept of disability justice emerged from disability rights movements and emphasizes the idea that access, dignity, and participation should be built into our systems, not treated as afterthoughts. From a recreation therapy perspective, this aligns closely with our professional values. Participation should not depend on physical ability, income, transportation access, or social privilege. Instead, communities can design environments that allow many different bodies and capacities to participate. This may include adaptive equipment, accessible trails, inclusive recreation programs, transportation access, sensory-friendly events, or flexible participation formats. The goal is not to force individuals to fit a system that excludes them. The goal is to adapt systems so more people can belong. Common barriers to leisure participation. Barriers to recreation and leisure often fall into several categories. Physical barriers include inaccessible buildings, lack of adaptive equipment, uneven terrain, or limited mobility accommodations. Financial barriers cover program fees, equipment costs, and travel expenses. Transportation barriers focus more on limited public transit and distance from recreation sites. Social and cultural barriers focus on stigma surrounding disability, lack of inclusive programming, and environments that feel unwelcoming. We also have sensory barriers, loud environments, bright lighting, or crowded spaces. These barriers can make participation feel impossible, even when someone deeply values recreation. Next up, we have recreation therapy and ethical responsibility. The ATRA Code of Ethics emphasizes respect for dignity, autonomy, and equitable access to services. Recreation therapists are trained not only to facilitate activities, but also to advocate for environments that support participation. This may include adapting activities, educating communities, collaborating with parks and recreation departments, and supporting individuals in finding accessible leisure opportunities. Ethically, the goal is not to prescribe one right activity. It's to help people reclaim meaningful participation in ways that fit their bodies and lives. So now it's time for examples of inclusive leisure opportunities. Fortunately, many organizations are working to expand adaptive recreation opportunities. Some examples include adaptive sports programs. Organizations like Disabled Sports USA and Move United offer adaptive programs such as skiing, cycling, and kayaking. Accessible Outdoor Recreation has many national and state parks that now provide wheelchair-accessible trails, adaptive kayak launches, beach wheelchairs, and accessible visitor centers. The National Park Service Accessibility Program offers detailed information about accessible outdoor experiences. Community adaptive recreation programs can look like many local parks and recreation departments offering adaptive classes and inclusive programming. These might include adaptive yoga, inclusive dance classes, and sensory-friendly recreation events. There are adaptive equipment libraries where some organizations lend equipment such as adaptive bikes, hiking wheelchairs, and sensory tools. These programs allow people to try new activities without the financial barrier of purchasing equipment. The role of creativity in adaptation. One of the most important principles in recreation therapy is that participation can take many forms. If a previous activity becomes inaccessible, adaptations might include modifying how the activity is done, reducing duration, changing environments, incorporating assistive tools, or exploring related activities. For example, someone who loved hiking might transition to accessible nature trails, birdwatching, nature photography, or outdoor sketching. The essence of the activity, connection with nature, can still remain. Adaptation is not failure. It's creativity. Take a moment to consider. What activities feel meaningful to you? Are there ways those activities could be adapted if your capacity changed? And are there resources in your community that might make participation easier? These questions are not about limitations. They're about expanding possibilities. Leisure should not be a privilege reserved for a few. It's a fundamental part of health, identity, and community. When systems become more inclusive and adaptive, everyone benefits, not just people living with disability or chronic illness. If you'd like to explore additional resources, adaptive recreation opportunities, and tools for nervous system care, you can visit my website at rootedwildretreats.com. You can also follow along on Instagram at rooted_wild_retreats, where I share resources, research, and guided practices related to recreation therapy and sustainable wellness. And if this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. Small conversations about access can help create bigger changes in our communities. Until next time, stay wild!